So this is more practice for polynomials. So this is really a continuation of my review video. So let me just show you what we're going to do. So I have these three polynomials. First, we're going to evaluate them for x equals 4. And then we will add or subtract the polynomials that you see here. And then we're going to do a whole bunch of multiplying. So I'm going to multiply these polynomials that you see here and also this next page of polynomials. So just in case you aren't familiar, these are really extra practice problems that accompany my review video on the same topic. So if you want to check out that review video that explains everything in detail, check the description for a link. And you can get a free PDF version of these problems with an answer key. Just go to divideandconquermath.com under the review section. So let's just jump right into it. So first I'm going to start by evaluating these three polynomials for x equals 4. So this should be nice and straightforward, but probably the trickiest part about this is that it's really an order of operations problem. So for instance, if we start with 6x minus 4, so I'm supposed to evaluate this for x equals 4, so I'm going to plug in 4, and then I have to just follow the order of operations. So first I do 6 times 4, which is 24, and then I can subtract off the 4, so this will equal 20. Okay. So for the next one, so now I have x squared minus 3x plus 2. So this will become 4 squared minus 3 times 4 plus 2. So this is 16 minus 12 plus 2. And now going from left to right, so 16 minus 12 is 4, and 4 plus 2 will be 6. And finally, so now we have one with fractions, just to keep our lives interesting. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the 4 first. So this will be 1/2 times 4 squared plus 1/4 times 4 minus 3. Now, this problem is just going to assume that you are okay with fractions. If you are a little rusty on them, I strongly recommend that you just take care of that. I do have a whole review series on fractions just to make them not such a thorn in your side. So let's go through this, okay? So I've got 1/2 times 4 squared. So first I've got to do 4 squared. So I've got 1/2 times 4 squared, which is 16. Next, I have 1/4 times 4. Now the thing that I know is that the 4 is technically over an invisible 1. So in looking at this, I notice 1/4 times 4 over 1. That really is just the 4's cancel out. So this whole thing just becomes 1. And then I've got the minus 3 at the end here. So now I've got to take half of 16. Half times 16 is just 8. So 8 plus 1 minus 3 is what I'm left with. So 8 plus 1 is 9, and 9 minus 3 is 6. Okay, so up next, now we're going to work on adding and subtracting the following polynomials. So let's just jump right into it. Of course, you can always feel free to pause the video here and try these three on your own if you are trying to practice this. Okay, so I am just going to get into this. So we talked about this in the review video. So in this case, I'm adding really this polynomial plus this polynomial. So the parentheses are kind of redundant. We don't really need them, and we can just add any like terms. So as I look around for my like terms, so I've got the 4x squared and the 6x squared, so that'll become 10x squared. I've got the 3x and the minus 5x, so that'll become negative 2x. And then I've got minus 5 plus 2, so minus 5 plus 2, that will be negative 3. By the way, you might be able to hear some snoring in the background. My old lady pit bull is sleeping in my office, and so if she is making loud snoring noises, I apologize, but she's too cute to wake up. Okay, so now let's continue going on. So I talked about in the review video that I think it's a really good idea when you have an expression like this. So I have one polynomial here minus another polynomial. First, force yourself to distribute this minus sign. I think that's a best practice. So this will become 5x cubed plus 4x squared minus 3x plus 5 minus 6x squared minus 4x plus 7. Okay, now I can go through and I can collect my like terms. So 5x cubed has no other like terms, so we're just going to leave that alone. 4x squared and negative 6x squared, those are like terms. Let's see, negative 3x and 4x, negative 4x, those are like terms. and then the 5 and the 7 are like terms. So now we can go through and collect our like terms. So this will be 5x cubed minus 2x squared minus 7x plus 12. So that would be the final answer for that one. Okay, and so for this last one, so I'm going to do the same thing to get started with this. So first I'm just going to distribute that negative. So this is going to be 1/2 x squared plus 3x plus 6 minus 1/3 x squared minus 5x plus 1. Okay, now in this case, I've got 1/2 x squared and negative 1/3 x squared, so I'm going to have to do some things with the fractions, but I'm just going to note any other like terms. So the 3x and the negative 5x are like terms, and the 6 and the 1 are both like terms. Okay, so let's just focus on doing this 1/2 x squared plus, or sorry, it should be a minus 1/3 x squared. So the only way that we're going to combine these two terms is by finding a common denominator. So really what I need to do is I just need to think about how do I do 1/2 minus 1/3. And I know in this case the LCD for those two will be 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the first fraction by 3/3, and I'm going to multiply the second fraction by 2/2. So this will be 3/6 minus 2/6. So this just equals 1/6. So that's the answer for that one. Okay, so now I can apply that to this whole mess up here. So 1/2 x squared minus 1/3 x squared, that's going to leave me with 1/6 x squared. And then 3x minus 5x will be minus 2x, and 6 plus 1 will be 7. Okay, cool. So now we're going to move on to multiplying. So I've just got all the problems here. You can pause if you want to read them over or try them on your own. So, okay, let's just get into this. So let's start with this first set of problems, which is really just all about distributing and getting us warmed up for using different exponent rules. So if I'm taking 4x times 5x plus 3, so I'm really distributing this in. So 4x times 5x is going to be 20x squared. So remember, x times x, you add the exponents. So that'll be, this is a 1 here, there's a 1 here, so 1 plus 1 will give me the 2 right here. So this is 20x squared plus 12x. Okay, and now continuing on, so I've got 2x squared times this whole set of stuff here. So this will turn into 2x to the 9th minus 6x to the 7th plus 10x to the 4th plus 2x squared. So again, I have taken each number and multiplied it by 2. So the numbers here were multiplied by 2, and then I added the exponents together. So now I'm going to distribute 1/2 x squared against this whole polynomial that we see here. So if you need to, if you can't do it in your head, that's all good. But then just force yourself to do like 1/2 times 4. And you can remember, right, that 4 is technically like over an invisible 1. So I'm trying to take 1/2 times this number here. So just if you can't do that in your head, you can force yourself to multiply this out. So remember, you multiply straight across. So 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2, 4/2 is going to equal 2. So this is always another way that you can do this. The alternative way that you can think about this, right, is this is just half. So you're just taking half of each. So alternatively, if I think of 1/2 times 6, that's what is half of 6? Half of 6 is 3. So tomato, tomato, whichever explanation makes the most sense to you is all good. If I take 1/2 times 8, so that's going to be 4. The only one that's a little weird is this 1/2 times 5. Since we can't easily take half of 5, we're just going to write this as 5/2, and that's all we've got to do for that one. So just in case that the fraction here stresses you out, just force yourself to do the calculations on the side before you multiply everything together. So remember, we still have to add the exponents together, so I've got x squared times all these other things. So now let me go ahead and just distribute this whole thing into the set of parentheses. So 1/2 x squared times 4x cubed is going to give me 2x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th plus 4x cubed plus 5/2x squared. So that'll be the answer for that one. Okay, and so now we are moving into multiplying different polynomials together. And I talked about in the other video that we're really trying to multiply everything in here times everything in here. So in this case, so I'm going to start by taking x times x. So x times x is x squared. And then x times 2 is 2x. And now that I've multiplied everything in here by the x, now I need to do that again for the 5. So I'm going to take 5 times the x, so that's going to be 5x, and then 5 times the 2, so that's going to be 10. And this will be x squared plus 7x plus 10. Okay, now you don't always have to use the colors in this case, so once you kind of get used to this, you can kind of just keep going with this. So I can take x times x, so that's going to be x squared. X times negative 7 will be negative 7x, so I've exhausted everything by the first term. So now I move on to the 4. 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. So this will be x squared minus 3x minus 28 when all is said and done. Okay, so moving on. So now I've got x minus 6 and x plus 6. So x times x is x squared. X times positive 6 is positive 6x. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. And negative 6 times 6 is negative 36. So in this case, what ends up happening is I've got the 6x minus the 6x. So these will drop out, and I'm just left with x squared minus 36 when all is said and done. And by the way, if you're finding this content helpful, please consider hitting that like button, or maybe even you could leave a comment or hit the subscribe button. That would be super cool. Okay, so continuing on with this. So now I have a larger polynomial, but it's still the same principle. So in this case, I'll use the colors again. So I've got 2x times x squared, so that's going to be 2x cubed. And then I'm going to have 2x times 3x, so that's going to be 6x squared. And then I'll have 2x times the 1, so that's going to be plus 2x. And so now I've taken everything in here times this first term, and so now I can pivot to the next one. So now I can take 1 times x squared, so that's going to be x squared. 1 times 3x, so that's going to be 3x, and then 1 times 1 is just going to be 1. So here's everything that I'm left with, and then I can just collect my like terms. So the 2x cubed hangs out by itself. 6x squared plus x squared will be 7x squared. 2x and 3x is 5x, and then we have the plus 1. Okay, so doing another example of this. Again, if you haven't tried one of these on your own, I'd strongly recommend that you try these on your own. You'll get a lot more out of this video if you do that. So, okay, so now I'm going to take everything in here times the first term, so times x. So I'm not going to draw the arrows this time. I'm just going to take x times each term to start. So x times 2x squared will be 2x cubed. X times 5x will be 5x squared. And x times 3 will be 3x. So that's now this first term times everything here. So now I can pivot to this 4 here and take 4 times everything in here. So this will be 8x squared plus 20x plus 12. And so then from here I can add up any like terms. So let's see, 2x cubed just hangs out by itself. 5x squared plus 8x squared will be 13x squared. 3x and 20x is 23x, and then we have the plus 12 at the end. So for the last two here, so these are just little tricky problems. They're actually multiplication problems in disguise. So if I have x plus 4 squared, so we talked about this in the review video, it's really important that you write out what this is. This is x plus 4 times x plus 4. I cannot just simply square the x and square the 4. That would be a big mistake. I have to write this out so that I can do the full multiplication, because then I can take this first term times these other two terms. So x times x is x squared, x times 4 is 4x, and then I can go ahead and come to the 4 here and multiply by everything in here. So 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 4 is 16. So this actually equals x squared plus 8x plus 16. And so you can see there is a middle term that would be lost if you just tried to square the first and the last term. And so for this last one, it's the same thing as the previous example. So I have 2x squared plus 3x plus 1, but all of that is squared. So the first thing that I've got to do is I've got to take 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 and 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. Okay, so now I'm going to take each thing in here by everything in here. So first we'll start with the 2x squared times everything here. So 2x squared times 2x squared will be 4x to the fourth. 2x squared times 3x will be 6x squared. 6x cubed. And 2x squared plus 1 will be 2x squared. Okay, so that's 2x squared times everything in here. So now let's do, I'm going to write these in 3 different rows just so we can kind of visualize it. So now let's take 3x times everything in here. So this will be 3x times 2x squared, so that's 6x cubed. 3x times 3x is 9x squared, and 3x plus 1 is 3x. So now I can see I've taken 3x times everything in here, and now I'm going to take the 1 times everything in here. So this will be plus 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. Okay, so here's everything. I just kind of wrote it in this list just so I could kind of track that I multiplied enough terms together, right? So I should have 3 terms for each thing that I multiply by, so I'm good here. So now I can go ahead and collect my like terms. Now this is a pretty long list, so I also find it's very helpful when the list gets this long to start crossing things out. So 4x to the fourth has no other like term, so okay, that one's done. Okay, so next I've got 6x cubed and 6x cubed, so that's going to be plus 12x cubed. So let's see, I'll go ahead and cancel 6x cubed and 6x cubed. And then I've got 2x squared, 9x squared, and 2x squared. So that's going to be plus 13x squared. So those are all done. Then I've got 3x and 3x, which is 6x. And then I've got the 1. So personally, I just find it very helpful to write out a list and to cross things off when it gets this large. But you do you. And so this would be the answer here. Okay. So, by the way, you really can't master math by watching just a ton of YouTube videos, so practice is really key. So if you found this helpful, all of my review videos come with this additional practice set, which always includes the PDF of problems and the answer key. And my review series has many other topics in it, so it's not just working on polynomials. So if you are interested in doing more quick review videos like what you saw here, go to divideandconquermath.com, just go to the review section. Everything is free, all the PDFs, all the videos, all that good stuff. It's all free for you. And otherwise, I am going to leave it at that, guys, and I will talk to you in another video, I hope. Bye!